proclaim from the housetops. In other words, what you hear in the dark, you must speak in the light. So about 100 years ago, when I was in college, a bunch of friends of mine were sitting around, and I had just heard that the Lutheran Church had opened up ordination to women. And I was so excited, because I knew that the Catholic Church was not far behind. We were kissing cousins, I thought. We had so much in common, especially with Vatican II having changed things. We both were changing the music in our worship services. Our altars went from facing the wall to facing the people. Our liturgies were pretty similar. There was a good ecumenical sense about us in our mainline denominations, the Lutherans, the Catholics, and the Episcopalians. I knew the Catholic Church was not far behind. Yeah, I was wrong. But I lived in this hope for years, as you know. There was something in my bones that would not let go, like the fire in Jeremiah's bones that propelled him to do prophetic work. Except the fire in my bones was not a prophetic fire, it was a pastor's fire. As I struggled to live out this fire, there were times when I was angry. There were nights that I would cry, that I would talk with some close friends. Joe knows this a lot, Mari knows this a lot, because they lived it with me. But there came a time when those conversations needed to be spoken in the light. And in a similar way, Matthew's community, they met in secret, the early followers of Jesus. It was really hard for them to choose to be followers of Jesus, because to be a follower of Jesus was highly charged politically. Now, different than us, we can follow Jesus and it seems to be okay. But back then, it was against the political machine. Rome terrorized the Jews, and this small sect of Jews now were being terrorized even more. And you have to remember, Jesus upset the status quo. He ate with sinners and outcasts. He healed people on the Sabbath. He befriended tax collectors. He just kept upsetting things. And he caused the oppressed to start to question big bad Rome. And this was dangerous. It was dangerous for the oppressed. It was dangerous for the group of people who had power over them, and it was dangerous for the ruling class. And so the Nathaniel community met at night. And they would share stories of good things that happened, of new people that joined their community, of the newly baptized, of their faith in God through Jesus, and the work of the Spirit in their lives. There was a fire burning in their bones, and they knew it. They knew that following Jesus was the very right thing for them to do. And as Jesus said, what you hear in the dark, you must proclaim in the light. The good news that you share with one another, whether it's hard and bleak or good and wonderful, you need to speak in the light. Speak out during the day. Don't hold your stories to the night. And they did. They went out. That's the reason we're here today. For me in my life, I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally, one day, I went to a colleague of mine, Margaret, who was a sister of Christian Charity. And you might have seen her here on my ordination day. And she was a part of a group who trained people to be spiritual leaders, spiritual directors. So I asked her for a list of spiritual directors because I thought, I've got to start talking about this. I'm driving myself crazy. So I got together with the one person on the list. There was this big long list. There was one name that had a dash and it said Lutheran pastor. And I went right after that name. I didn't even look at another name. And for 8 years, we have been going back came a time when I think I was driving her crazy. I was like, one month I would come in, I'm going to be Catholic. The next month, I'm going Lutheran. The next month, no, I need to be Catholic. No, I'm going Lutheran. And finally, I said to her, I can't even see where I'm going. It's like I'm stepping out onto this bridge, and there's this cloud that is covering the bridge, and I can't even make out what is in front of me. And she said to me, take one step and see where it takes you. And so I took one step. I went over to Drew, which was like a bike ride from my house. And I told them I wanted to take one class. And they said, if you take 3, it'll be cheaper than taking 1. So I'm like, okay, you got me. I'll take 3. So I took 3. And it was so powerful to be in an environment where for the first time I did not feel like a second-class person. And then I began to cry. And it was like, I think it was like just a letting out of all kinds of stuff that I had packed down over the years. And then I wanted to tell my story. And now I lost my place. So, give me a moment.
You went to church.
I went to church, that's right. And I also turned the page.
The ring was cheaper than 1.
So, all the time I was doing that, I was investigating what it was to be Lutheran at St. John's in Summit. And I found that they had dinner church, and I could fit that with my other church schedule. So I went to dinner church. And then I figured out the mornings, Sunday morning, if I went over to Corpus Christi at 7:30, I welcomed people to the 7:30 Mass, and then I darted out. I could get to St. John's in time for the 8 o'clock service, and then I would come back just as the kids were coming in, getting ready for doing music. So that was my world. But nobody knew what was going on. Nobody except for Joe and Laurie. Then I kept thinking, what you hear in the dark is not to speak in the light. And it was time for me to start telling people. And so I told some close friends. And they were like, that's great, go for it. And then I told extended family. I told my brothers and my sister. I told my mother. And my mother is a little rough because she had brought us up Catholic. She's an Irish Catholic. And when you're Irish Catholic, you're like your whole, it's in your blood, your bones, and everything. And I said to her, she knew I was going with her. She knew I was taking classes. She would ask me about them. And then there came a time that I said to her, I said, you know what, Mom, I'm going to go for ordination. Would you give me your blessing? And she said, no. She said, I can't give you my blessing. It was hard. But when I got in the car that day to go home, I still felt peace in my heart. I knew I was doing the right thing. I knew I was going with God. The more I told people, the more I got excited. The more I got excited, the more I knew I was going in the right direction. And a lot of you know the rest of the story. Being here today, I wouldn't trade this in for anything in the world. But it's not a walk in the park. It's not perfect, and we know that. Yet, when we walk with God, we can walk with strength, with perseverance, knowing that we can set out right out into the light, and we can let the world know. Catholic or Lutheran, we know that the only waters that will continue to give us life are the waters of baptism. That same water that we drink to quench our thirst or we wash our face with is the water that brought us from suffocating sin to new life in Christ. We've all gone from those waters. We are free together. And in the same way that I share my story, I invite you to share your story. What you hear in the conversations, Jesus invites all of us to speak in the light, to speak in places where the sun shines, where we can't hide, in larger groups, even in places where people might not talk about faith. You will know when the time is right. You will feel the fire in your bones, much like Jeremiah did. And for as fearful as it might be, you will know that it is right. Whether it's about talking about LGBTQ rights, or race relations, or faith in Jesus, or Native American rights. Or it might be to talk about the gift that you bring to St Andrew's. Or it might be your dreams for St Andrew. We have all been fed by the Word and the Eucharist over and over, week after week. We are cleansed by the waters of baptism. We are part of a great community of hospitality and love, where we are made new every day. What you hear in the dark, proclaim the light. The world is begging us. Tell me about the fire in your bones.